Properly interpreted, the Bible is a history of God's relationship with the African nation Israel and the black Messiah Jesus. Without a correct interpretation, the Bible has served to confuse and enslave powerless people who have waited in vain for deliverance here on earth and for transportation to a mystical heaven in the sky after they die.
Welcome to the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church Bible Class Lecture Series. The theme for the season of Lent is the season of renewal. Our topic for today, renewing our covenant vows. I am Walimu Olatunji Lumumba, honored to be your instructor today. The Lenten season of renewal is a time on the church calendar at the beginning of the new year for members to fully recommit themselves to the program of the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church. It is a time of contemplation, introspection, revival, and rebirth. As we seek to renew our covenant vows, we recognize that God is a live and active part of the renewal process. For us, God is the unified field of cosmic energy and creative intelligence in which we live. We therefore seek God's power and revelation for insight and direction.
And it shall be our righteousness, if we observe to do all these things, commandments before the Lord our God, as he hath commanded us.
As a covenant community, we periodically call our members back to the laws which undergird our spiritual and liberation struggle. We renew the values, spiritual practices, and disciplines that allow us to commune with one another and with God's power. As Black Christian nationalists, we understand that we cannot be directed by the energy of God simply by professing awareness to it and claiming faith in it. We know that our awareness of God must be demonstrated by our works in obedience to God's will. The act of recommitment to the will of God requires that we remember what being led by God promises us and commands of us. We seek to be at one with God so that the energy and wisdom of God can work through us.
The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. We are reminded of the book of Deuteronomy, the last book of the Pentateuch, or the books of Moses. Deuteronomy means second law and refers to the second giving of the Ten Commandments, wherein a strong reminder is given to the next generation to keep the faith. As the community struggles to reach the promised land, they were reminded of their history and God's faithfulness to the generation before them. God's power gives the new generation more laws, new insight, to help them continue to be one people, reaffirming the covenant. The central theme of Deuteronomy is obedience to the law, righteous communalism, and nation building. The servant Moses gives untold years of service to nation building, accepting his duty to God's people despite the difficulty. To the very end, Moses uses all his energy, his spirit, preparing his people to receive the covenant inheritance of land and power. He takes time to carefully share spiritual truths concerning what they must do to sustain God's promise for all time. You have declared that this day concerning the Lord, that he is your God, and that you will walk in his ways, and keep his statutes, and his commandments, and his ordinances, and will obey his voice. And the Lord has declared this day concerning you, that you are a people for his own possession, as he has promised you, and that you are to keep all his commandments.
The blessings and curses of Deuteronomy indicate to the black nation Israel that there are always consequences for human behavior. Nothing we do is without some effect on others. We live in a unified energy field. We must pay attention to the quality of our behavior to avoid negatively influencing the energy field within which we all share life. Spiritual leadership has an attitude of service. It rejects self-centeredness for the highest example of communalism. We recommit our lives to our religious obligations, which include accepting divine authority over human authority, sacrificial work and giving, renouncing individualism and embracing communalism. We must be actively involved in confronting the injustice, oppression, and exploitation of our people that keep us alienated and disconnected from God's power.
For this commandment I command you this day is not too hard for you, neither is it far off. It is not in heaven that you should say, who will go up for us to heaven and bring it to us that we might hear it and do it. Neither is it beyond the sea that you should say, who will go over the sea for us and bring it to us, that we may hear it and do it. But the word is very near you. It is in your mouth and in your heart, so that you can do it.
It is this choice which keeps us on the path of spiritual rebirth. God speaks to us through emanations we receive from the energy field. When we listen and open our consciousness, we can hear God's revealed will for our lives. When we do not listen, we miss the opportunities for new insight, healing, blessings, and the miracle of renewal. Upon joining the church, we accepted a shared commitment for spiritual enlightenment, healing, and transformation, not just for self, but for our entire people. As a covenant community, we must be keenly aware of our higher mission and purpose to organize our lives for the accomplishment of the greatest good. The opportunity for God's power is always open to us. We believe that Black Christian nationalism is the answer to empower a Pan-African world.
The difficulties that we have had to address over the past year are a constant reminder of the problems faced by our powerless people. Our struggle for self-determination is far from over. But as we struggle through this 40-day Lenten season, let us reaffirm our faith and commitment to nation building. Stay safe.